Hey, what is happening, new Venusian artist Steve Mayeda here with another Formula 69 breakdown. This is video 3 where we're going to start to cover rapport. And rapport is covered in 2 videos. You're going to want to watch both of these because what we break down, it's very simple, but can grow into a very complex web. And hey, let me just tell you, if you can get rapport in your life, it's a life skill. It will help you in literally every area of your life. Sales, making friends, seduction, fast seduction, slow seduction, dating life, all that sort of stuff. And especially what we're geared for in Formula 69 is basically this. If I can meet somebody, I can get a connection, I can get rapport. If I can get rapport, then I can get a date. If I can get a date, I can get a kiss. If I can get a kiss, I can get a close. Boom, we're there. Very simple way. I know in this whole series, there's a lot of information and a lot of content, but literally when you apply it, man, this is just, you start getting results within 2 or 3 hours. And of course, Formula 69 is here so that you can get a 60% open rate. That means 6 out of 10 people, women that you open, 6 out of 10 of them, you should be able to escalate all the way to a close. That's pretty good, man. Pretty good. In any case, let's dive into what we are going to learn here today. So first off, what we're going to be learning today is the first part of rapport, how we can get an amazing connection with somebody by eliciting unique qualities. We're going to workshop it. We're going to find out the tipping points of rapport and really cover one of those in depth. And a tipping point is really when a conversation just boom, floods into rapport. And we're going to find a way where we can apply that to our life in an easy way and set us all up for the next video. Now, one thing that I want to state here is if we're not at the point where we can open and get about a 20% success rate, that means 1 out of 5 people, or open and get a transition rate so that we can work those 3 transitions that we covered in the previous video to a 20% success rate, then we probably need to go back and review and test those out. I know for you guys who are like information junkies, that's great, but that isn't what's going to make you good. Anybody I know, look, I've been teaching for 10 years. Anybody I know that has been proficient at getting good with women applied it right away. So that's what we want to learn. All right, just a really quick overview here. We're going to basically learn how to open, get a transition, move to rapport. And when we mean rapport, we are meaning the deepest connection possible with a woman. It's like, that's what we want. We want to speak to the side of her that is making decisions about her life, about sex, about seduction, all that sort of stuff. That's what we want. We don't just want, some minuscule connection. We want like an amazing, amazing connection. Okay. So basically, one thing that I want to kind of cover here is, remember when it came to openers, there's passive, indirect, and direct. The reason why I bring that up is because we're going to dive into those a little bit. The transitions are buffers, complements, unique qualities. And so we need to understand those things to set up how we're going to get to rapport. Like, this whole formula is fluid from start to finish. And if we don't start in the way that we're recommending here, with these types of openers, with basing it off of yourself, with transitioning in those ways, you're not going to get to rapport as quick. When we are setting up those, whether it is passive, direct, indirect openers, whatever it is we do them in the way that the video has broken down, because that will set you up for the transition. The transition will set you up for this, the tipping points of rapport. Okay, so what are the tipping points of rapport? Pretty simple here. It's unique qualities, values, and choice. If we can stimulate any of those in any conversation, then we're going to tip over into rapport. We will no longer be in a superficial conversation. We'll no longer be in attraction. We'll be in comfort. It will force it. It will make it happen. Now, that is a super important thing and a great skill to have. So check this out. If we can get a unique quality, like something particular about that person, how they talk, how they dress. And we'll break this down thoroughly in the presentation. But if we can get that unique quality and speak to it and interact with it, or even a unique quality about ourselves, man, we will be in rapport. If we can elicit somebody's values and speak to it, like, man, what do you really value? Do you value family? Do you value your life? Do you value, healthy relationships and sex? If we can speak to that, you'll be in rapport. No more superficiality. The whole value game gets kind of limited. It becomes considerably less important. Like value and all that stuff and the old school pickup stuff, like especially like what Venusian Arts is known for, is really to meet somebody. It doesn't change people's decisions about sex. And actually the greatest seducers I know didn't have a lot of value. Okay. Some of them did. It can only help you. If you have it, don't lose it. But if you don't have it, you don't need to get it. In any case, choice is the next thing. And what that really means is when somebody makes a decision, like you see this all the time in seduction. Let's say you open a set and one of the girls gets really pissed off, right? And then as the set continues, 2 minutes in, she kind of warms up. Well, that girl made a choice from being angry to happy, or angry to accepting. We'll say that. When that happens, we move ourselves into rapport, and you'll see this over and over again. Choice, we don't cover heavily in this video, but it comes up throughout the whole system of Formula 69. It's all about stimulating a choice. And if you can get that, there's so many different ways to do it. It's not just when a girl goes from being, bitchy to happy. It happens all the time, and that is the bomb. All right. So let's look at unique qualities. This is actually a funny picture. This is my friend Genesee, who, if you ever come to Austin, she used to work with us a little bit, but she is Miss Unique. And I wanted to put her or feature here mainly because she's obviously a unique person, right? Okay. You look at this picture, this is her Facebook profile picture, and you're just like, whoa, like what the hell's going on here? All right. And, the little crown, the cat's paw, and actually this isn't really her body. She has like a ton of tattoos and stuff. So that's what's happening there. She's got the blue hair. That's really hers. And, anyway, her body's probably better than that. In any case, you got to meet her. But what I wanted to get about unique qualities is it's not just the blue hair. It's not just the funky Facebook profile picture. It's not just the weird stuff that the person is presenting, the obvious superficialities. What it is deeper than that. It's the meaning behind all those things. If we can talk to that, then we're going to tip ourselves into rapport. And this is what I want you guys to get good at first. So if we were to take notes on this and really hammer in how we're going to develop like the first stage of just badass rapport. You should get here in 2 minutes. If you don't get here within 5 minutes, you're clearly doing something wrong in any of your interactions. I don't care if it's in the club. I don't care if it's daytime, waitress, strippers, whatever the hell it is, you should be getting here. All right. And if you do a workshop with us, especially with me, like you will get this. It's very easy. Actually, the last workshop we did, it was pretty funny because I set up the timelines for the guys and it was like, all right, you can meet a girl and get her to pay attention to you, for 10 seconds, 15 seconds in that time frame. Like she'll pay attention to you. You've accomplished the goals of opening in 10 seconds to 15 seconds. You're going to then move to some sort of rapport or unique qualities or something within 2 minutes. And they're like, what? That's impossible. Especially if you're in a club doing that body language wise, which we're actually not covering in this, but it's like cake. If you use your body language in the right way, you will isolate, you will get to unique qualities or some sort of rapport level. It's super easy. Here's a hint. Get close, work your angles, hips and shoulders facing one person or your target. And with your head, acknowledge everybody else. Throw group theory out the window. You don't need it. I know that may sound whatever, but hey, do a workshop. That'll change your life. It'll kick ass. But here, once again, what we're getting to is look, how do these people have relationships? How do they think of themselves? How do they think of other people? How they have that internal image of themselves. That is the unique quality. It's not necessarily what you see on the outside. Actually, one thing that I know from Genesee and knowing her for so long is the unique qualities within are deep. All right. So let's workshop these unique qualities. Obviously, there's the blue hair. Man, and I just ran into her when I was teaching my last workshop with the guys, and she still had blue hair. And I'm like, hey, when did it go blue? Because before that it was all crazy. And she's like, since November or whatever. So obviously there's the blue hair. You can't see all her tattoos here, but obviously there's the tattoos. Obviously there's a tattoo on the bottom of her lip that says Dick's the bomb. Like there's all this crazy shit about this girl. But what does that mean? If I just go in and only keep it about the hair, only about the tattoos, only about the weird pictures and the funky stuff that she's into, man, I'm skating on surface. I'm dependent on attraction game, and I'm not going to go anywhere. I want to get to seduction. I want to get to seduction quick. I want to move there very fast. I want to, in this case, in Formula 69, move to a date as quick as possible. In order to get that, I need rapport, and I need to tip it into rapport using these unique qualities. So, like, a starting place might be like, why do you have blue hair? What does that mean? You know, how and why did I personally change my appearance? Me personally, I've actually had blue hair when I was 17 or 18. And then again, I think when I was 21, which is tough because you got to bleach the shit out of it unless you already have blonde hair. She's Mexican, and she, had to bleach the shit out of it, obviously. Anyway, so what did that mean for me? You know, what would be the best way for that to be brought up to me? So what I'm actually asking here is, like, if we notice somebody, like if we notice some obvious things about that person, like they have blue hair, a lot of tattoos, a crazy tattoo, they walk in an interesting way, they have a certain job somewhere, we want to bring that back to ourselves or somebody else that we know. So for instance, in this case, it's like, man, you have crazy Facebook profile pictures. You know, this could be it. Well, I too have crazy Facebook profile pictures. In fact, if you want to see them and what we're going to actually get into a little bit later, you should be my friend on Facebook. Search it. In any case, the thing is that if we have these crazy Facebook profile pictures and I just go, man, you have a crazy Facebook profile picture, that's not good enough. I'm communicating on a superficiality. I need to get a little bit deeper. So I want to start relating to why that person would have that. Okay. Why did I change my Facebook profile pictures into something crazy? You know, was it just for attention? Was it a part of a unique sense of humor? You know, what did it mean? Well, I can tell you from myself, you know, why I would do all these bizarro pictures on Facebook. And my current one is actually not too crazy, but it's of me and my son on Father's Day. You should check it out. But basically, the thing is why I would change them wasn't just for attention. Of course, that's kind of cool. Of course, it might be to shock people a little bit. That's kind of funny, right? You know, I thought that was funny. It wasn't just like to get attention. There was a humor in it. But the people that understood it and thought it was funny were people that thought like me. Interesting, okay? So if I start asking myself these questions, I can kind of get these answers. So if I were to see Genesee and I'd say, man, you have crazy, crazy Facebook profile pictures. Okay. And then I were to say, you know what? You know what's crazy about that is that a lot of people might think it's like to get attention, and yeah, you know, that might be part of it. But the people that get what you're saying, man, those are the people you want to hang out with. Like the people that have the sense of humor like you are cool. The people that are all judgmental and stupid aren't. Let's say we see somebody who's at the grocery store and they don't have all these obvious things like blue hair and all this crazy shit to, you know, comment on. But they just have an interesting way of holding themselves. That's it. You know, it's the checkout girl. You have very little time. There's, you know, a line on both sides of you or whatever. It's your turn to pay and for her to check you out. And she just has an interesting swagger that you like. Same thing. Well, first off, what do I notice about her? How do I have friends that have that similar quality? Or how do I have that similar quality? And what does that mean? Okay, that might seem like a lot, and these are questions that you haven't thought of before, but look, we're going to get into this. If you discipline yourself to start thinking within this way, within 30 days, sooner than that actually, and you do what I recommend here, you'll have a life skill for the rest of your life to connect with people instantly. I mean, 2 minutes. Like I said, 5 minutes is too long. If you're going past that, you're doing something wrong, right? Or the situation's off. In any case, that being said, we notice she has a little bit of a different swagger, this girl, or this presence, right? It reminds us of this, man, just a really cool person, you know, of this very warm feeling. And we could say to them, you know, they're checking out her stuff. They're like, how's your day? All that sort of stuff. And everybody has this thing about hired guns, like, they're just being nice to you because they're supposed to. Yeah, but that doesn't mean that, again, that's like attraction game. They're already paying attention to you. You've got it accomplished. Nobody gives you rapport because they're paid to. People give you rapport because they decide to. All right. So doesn't matter if they're paid or not. And plus a checkout girl, whatever, she doesn't care. And even a waitress or a stripper, they're not like masters of social dynamics. They don't go to school to like learn how to trick and manipulate people. It's pretty easy. Anyway, if you're saying that, you don't have any experience with waitresses or hired guns or strippers or whatever. Just trust me on that. In any case, we could say something to her like, hey, you know what? I have a question. You remind me of somebody. Like, your vibe is super, super cool. And it's just really warm. And I mean this in the right way, kind of sensual. Okay. Now, I'm just stating kind of like a superficial quality. That's like, hey, you have interesting blue hair and crazy tattoos. That's not enough. I need to give it meaning. Okay. I need to give it a presentation of maybe why I would notice that, or why my friend who she reminds me of is like that. So I could say right after the whole thing, like, hey, you know what? You have an interesting vibe. It's really cool. Like, it's really warm, and I mean this in a good way. It's kind of sensual, but it reminds me of my friend. And she always said that made her attract kind of like the worst type of men in her life. I know it's a weird question, but is that true? Now I'm speaking not just to her presence, which probably a lot of people notice, but what her presence gets, how that defines her as a woman, what kind of men she attracts. And this is actually a cool thing, guys. Just remember this. With women that are more attractive and that get more attention from men, they attract really like aggressive guys, like guys that know how to show up and be a man. But this is kind of a cool little cold read. In truth, like if you meet a lot of women who have this happen, they'll agree with you or tell you, they'll go all into detail about it. But they attract a lot of guys who are really, can speak for themselves, alpha in the PUA terms. They present themselves in good ways. But as soon as they get intimate, they become total bitches and they're total pussies. So it's like if you meet a hot girl, it's like, hey, you attract men that are really, really like, man, like badass dudes and all that sort of stuff. But as soon as you get intimate, as soon as it gets physical, they become like everything a stereotypical, like hysterical girl becomes. They get like jealous and have all these problems, and like they become total like pussies. Like as soon as it gets a little physical, they're bitches, and they'll be like, oh my God. And it's one of those things that nobody talks about. So it's a super intense, unique quality. And man, that's a great way to get into rapport. So in any case, I just want you to go through what all these things mean, what they could mean. All right. And as we go here on this slide, it's basically like, what are some other qualities about somebody that are unique? So it's not just their blue hair. It might be what their blue hair means. It might be what it means to them. It might go to their expression. It might have to do something with their relationship to their mom or their dad. Maybe it, defines them as somebody who's, makes bad choices in life or good choices or whatever. Maybe it might have to do with what she thinks is attractive. In any case, it goes to the deeper things, to who she is as a person. Okay. So in order to build this skill, as we talked about it, I want you to start thinking about this. And this is going to get into a cool exercise. So really pay attention here. Notice what is unique about you. If you study this, okay, just in general, forget Genesee with the blue hair. Just notice what's unique about you. Okay, think about how that can be brought up to other people. How I think about other people when I watch them. Like, what do I think when I'm people watching? What do I judge about them? How do I judge? It's always an interesting thing, actually. One thing that I do with more of the long-term clients when we do stuff with MD360 is we do people watch, and there's a bunch of different exercises that come from that. But if we were to people watch and then we went to like, all right, what's something a little bit funny about them? What's something a little bit quirky about them? Put yourself in their shoes, feel what they're feeling. All sorts of different stuff comes from it to build a sense of empathy and social intelligence. It's man, believe me, it will give you tons of ways to connect with somebody. Like maybe you want to think about how do I second guess myself? How do I overthink things? When do I overthink things? You know, how is it that when I fail, I think back to a certain moment in my life? Now, these are all kind of like deep things, but I want you to really think about this. These are all things that people do. When people observe other people, they go like, oh my God, that guy's so funny. Or, oh my God, like, you know, when that person tripped, I was the only person who laughed. I can't do that. These are all things that people think that are very, very intimate, that because we don't talk about, we think that they have to do with like these deeper meanings of ourselves. How I second guess myself, you know, where a lot of people second guess themselves, it's when it's personal decisions or big, big deals. But nobody second guesses themselves on the easy things. Okay, so you could say like, man, you're somebody that second guesses yourself when it's a really big deal or when it has to do with a guy, you know, it has to do with a relationship. This would be intense things. How and when I fail, do I think back of other moments? Like, think about that, man. It's like when you really fail at something, you're kind of sitting in that failure. It's like, God, I'm always going to be that way. We see this all the time in pickup, actually. It's interesting, but women have it too. These are great ways for you to actually cold read and gain huge amounts of rapport with. But like, we go out in field at night, and let's say we don't have a good night. We get rejected a lot. There's a lot of girls who turn us down or whatever the reasons are. You know, we just don't get we don't have a good night. Okay, and I see it all the time. Guys go like, fuck, man, this is how it is for everything in my life. It's the same broken record deal over and over again. And we go like nuts, right? So when we fail, we start thinking back to different moments. We start to, you know, get all this information and get into this self-loathing and whatever. And it doesn't just have to be that way. But it's like you could say to women, it's like, man, the last time when you got rejected really bad by a guy that you liked, it just seemed like that happened for the rest of your life. You like overthink that stuff. Interesting ways of how we can get into rapport in that way. So very, very, very important. So these are all things that people commonly think about. They hardly ever talk about. It's just a good gateway to find stuff. But let's keep going on with the exercises, or to move on to the exercises. All right. So in this, what we want to do is we want to explore a way that we can get more in touch with our own unique qualities and then turn them into statements to ask people about them. All right. So we're going to find a few different unique qualities about ourselves. Okay. We're going to explore why, how, and what that all means. And then we're going to figure out a way to ask it to people. All right. And even make statements about it. Okay. So the difference would be is if we think of these unique qualities, it's like, man, you know, I'm somebody that when I get thrown off by something, I can't think straight. And then I get like all sorts of anxiety and get pissed off and frustrated and start lashing out at people. So I could make a question about that or a statement about it. I could say, man, are you somebody when you have too much on your plate? Like just, it's anxiety, it's crazy. And you know, you might start lashing out at people and all that sort of stuff. And it could be like really stupid stuff, but at the time it's not. So that's a question. I could make a statement of saying like, you are totally somebody that when you have too much on your plate, you can't think straight. Like little things become big deals. So subtle difference, but big stuff. Let's look at these examples. All right. 3 unique qualities about me. All right, let's get into this. And I purposely chose a few things that people might think are DLVs. Why? Because that stuff's all bullshit. All right. Value and all that stuff. It's good for some things, but ultimately the reason why I don't really play towards it, if you have value, use it, please, like take it. But if you do not have value, it doesn't mean anything. Okay. Connection can still happen. And like I said, the best seducers did it without a lot of value. So the first thing is I'm a drug addict. All right. I'm actually a recovering drug addict, but whatever. Nonetheless, not something that people think they can bring up. And it's probably one of the best qualities about my life. And I'll tell you all about it. I have a 6 tall wife. I'm 5'8", so I'm technically a short dude. I never thought that because growing up in Hawaii and in where I grew up in California, I wasn't really smaller, but man, as soon as I moved to Texas, I was. All right, I'm half Asian. So these are like three unique qualities that are very unique to me, Now, as I explore them, all right, I want to be able to talk about them. And so if we look at the questions that we had, it's like explore them. Why? How? What does this mean? Okay. How could I ask people about that? And really quickly here, it's like, okay, well, I'm a drug addict. What does that mean to me? Man, it means I'm like obsessive and compulsive. It means that I've done stuff that has like absolutely ruined my life and like totally fucked things up. But it's also been one of the best parts about my life. I mean, just hands down, it's fucking awesome. And it gives me such a huge perspective. I mean, my whole life is working with other people. And I have a huge, huge spectrum of what humanity is. So much to the point where people are like a little bit, what? Like, you've experienced what, or you've done what? But it gives me a great window on things. And, it's allowed me to see deeper sides of stuff. Like I've, in some ways, not to be dramatic, but seen very bad things in my life, but that gives true meaning to good things in my life. So for instance, how could I ask somebody about that? I could say, man, do you have something in your life that was absolutely crippling? Like totally destroyed you, obviously was bad for you, but you were able to use it in a way that, God, it made your life an awesome, awesome thing. It's like one of the most valuable things about your life. They can say yes or no. And I can say, well, look, I used to do a bunch of different drugs that were just really hardcore and fucked up, totally ruined my life with it. But, it's one thing when people say the cliche saying like, a hell can be a heaven, or the bad things in your life can turn into be blessings. But when you've actually lived that, it's so much different. And that makes me realize that every human being has like a really good side to him, even when we might just see the bad side. Let me ask you this, and then I can transition to deeper things. If somebody's having that conversation with me, they're in rapport. And that's actually a lot of my expression and not really getting something from them. I can also make a statement about it and just say like, hey, I think you're somebody that would totally understand what it means to have like true tragedy in your life become an amazing thing. Like, do you get that or not? If I'm having that conversation, man, I'm getting a rapport. Okay. And just to be clear here, there still might be some superficialities. There still might be some attraction game in there that I might have to stimulate, but there'll be little blips on a map to this like huge 90% of rapport and connection that's carrying away. Okay. Another thing, 6 foot tall girlfriend. This actually I love to bring up because I'll talk to girls and I'll just say like, hey, what are your most attractive qualities? And you can't say humor, height, or confidence because everybody says that shit. And plus, I'm short. And then I'll say things like, they'll say whatever. And, it's something that I'm always asking people, right? What is the most attractive quality about a guy? Or what's the most attractive thing that, men notice about you or something like that. But the funny thing with this is that when I bring this up, right, that it's like, I'll say things like, well, hey, what kind of girl do you think would go for me, or some shit like this, right? Now I have this, and this is something that's in my life, and I get it. If you're single, you're not really going to say this, but I just kind of say this to mess with people or rattle them. And I'll say like, well, wait a minute. Like what do you like? What do you like in men? What do you like? And if they get really holier than thou, if they get really, like, well, I get this and that, and I'm the, queen, blah, 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 blah. You get this a lot with like girls who are hired guns and have big egos with it, like the 10s and all that sort of stuff. And they get seen as 10s all the time. The funny thing about girls that are 10s or that are seen that way, it's not just all girls that are 10s, but the girls that are like in the club, or the girls that work in clubs, or the girls that are waitresses or strippers, and they get a lot of validation for their image, they usually don't get what they want. They get the rides on the boat, they get the bottle service, they get the cool trips, but they can't fucking ever hold down a man and get that consistent. So that's what's crazy. That's actually an interesting thing. So I'll always just go like, no, man, well, look, I mean, my wife is pretty hot. Shit, I don't want to be a dick, but you're talking about all these superficialities about women and men and yourself, but I'd say she's like hotter than you. And I'll show her a picture and say, no, man, she's been a model and all this sort of stuff. And I don't know, but she always tells me that the most important quality about a woman is being able to get a good man and bring him up to be a better man. And let me ask you, like, do you actually have that? Now, if I was single, I could say it as a story about my past, or this is somebody that I've dated. Or if I was single, I would say, no, man, it's interesting. There's this guy, Steve, that I know, and he's 5'8", and his wife is this, former model, and she's done all this crazy stuff, and she's 6 feet tall, and she's total knockout. Like, she has like a lot of presence, yada, yada, yada. And she says, beauty means nothing. It doesn't mean anything. What it means to truly be a woman is to be able to get a man that is a good man and make him a great man. And a woman that can do that, it takes more than just her looks or how she has sex or all the stuff that everybody says is like important in a relationship, and it takes more. But I'm wondering, like, do you have that in your life? That's a huge challenge. It's good stuff. When we get into the next thing on rapport, remember that one, flag that one. It's good. It's called the rapport cycle. Write it down. All right. The other thing is I'm half Asian. That's a unique quality. This is actually funny because when I was growing up, so I grew up around in two places, in California and Hawaii. In Hawaii, everybody's half Asian. It's a hapa hali, or whatever you want to call it. But in California, there wasn't as many, especially when I was growing up in the 80s. It's more common now, but it wasn't as common then. When you met another half Asian person, it was like totally crazy, right? So basically, one of the things is that I would basically like think I looked different, especially when I was in California, and I thought I was like a freak. Like, I'm like, nobody else looks like me. I just thought I looked so weird, and it bugged me tremendously. Well, little did I realize is that everybody thinks this. Okay, so everybody thinks this when they're younger. They look in the mirror and they're like, man, I feel like I'm weird or a freak. And you can bring this up to people. You could say like, hey, when you were younger, did you look in the mirror and think you just looked weird or off? Or especially if I notice something and I say, okay, I'm going to say this. This is actually a bomb thing. If I wanted to go to rapport big time, I'm not saying this to be a dick. I'm definitely not saying this to be a dick. I'm saying this to talk to the core of that person. One of those ways is generally to talk about insecurities. So don't say to be a dick. It's not about value or to be an asshole. It's actually like if I notice something about a girl, like a facial feature, like she has bigger lips or her nose is a little bit bigger or whatever, her eyes are really big or something, or yada, 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 or smaller. I'll say, hey, when you were growing up, I noticed this about you, but you have like, I actually love your nose, but probably when you were a kid, you thought it was really weird. And see, the reason why I'm saying that is because I grew up half Asian, and I grew up where there were no other people like that. I thought I was a freak. Like, I thought there was something wrong with me. And, I didn't realize everybody kind of thought that. But did you think that? You'll notice you'll get all insecure, and you can say like, hey, I'm not trying to make you insecure. I'm trying to actually, like, I think it's cool. I was just trying to see like if you were somebody who thought that, which is badass if you did, because I can relate with it. And with that, I'm actually stimulating a choice too, because she's feeling insecure, and then I'm making it feel comfortable. It's just, there's a lot going on in there, and it will boom. If you're having that conversation, you'll be in rapport with that person. Okay. So I want to take this a step further. Let's do something kind of cool. I want to play a little game. Now, this is a cool deal. This will carry over into your next exercise in the next little presentation that we have on rapport. But I want you to go to your Facebook or whatever it is, or through your phone, and pick out some cool pictures. Now, we've all heard about the mystery photo routine. Fuck that. Okay, that's great and cool, but I'm not doing this to show value, although this might show some cool value in whatever. But so what I did was I picked out these 5 pictures, and they all have a story to them. That's the important thing. Okay, they all have a story to them. All right, and I want you to be able to tell that story, because these are unique qualities about you, all right, that you can ask questions about and share with other people. So this first picture is of myself and my son, and we're crying. This was actually taken right after he was born. Shortly after he was born, it was the first time we like sunk up in a picture, and everybody always said we looked like each other. We still do. But it's like just this cool moment. And there's a lot that I could say about it. In fact, this is at our old house. It was before we moved, and there's just like a lot of cool memories attached to it. This next picture is actually, hey, this is kind of cool. This could be kind of like a DHV, but I don't mean it in that way. This is actually Hypnotica. If you guys don't know him, Eric von Sydow, he's a pretty legendary guy. We're pretty good friends, do workshops together and stuff. More the reason to be a part of my workshops is because I don't really know many better coaches other than Eric. Awesome guy. You know, he's in the game, yada, yada, yada. But this is actually, I think, 2 days after my son Esteban was born, and that's him and Maria. And he is meeting Esteban. It's so cool because Esteban, when he was born, he met all these people. Ross Jeffries randomly showed up at my house and did an interview. You should listen to it on Bang Radio. It's very cool. He is more open and intimate than he's ever been. So he met my son when he was, a month or two old. Hypnotica when he was 2 days old. Nick Sparks, if you've heard about him, he's the most popular speaker of, any dating person. He has more minutes watched on YouTube for a speech than anybody, more than Tyler Durden and stuff. So, but Nick is a cool guy. I'm actually going to go meet him in a few hours for burgers in Austin. But just all these different dating coaches have met Esteban, and of course at the 21 convention, he's met a ton. This next one is Maria's like sticking or whatever, holding a big squash coming out of my mouth. That's what it's supposed to look like. But this is actually a picture that used to be my Facebook profile picture. And basically it was right when we got done with the road trip. And it's kind of cool because we had somebody watering our yard and they didn't do it as much as it needed to. And so all the plants died except the squash plant. And so we came back from this trip, and this is right when we came back. It was awesome. We were gone for 2 weeks. It was a bummer that the garden was dead, but this big, huge fucking squash of a thing was there. And it just kind of reminded us all of it. The other picture is of me and Mari when we, this is actually a couple of years ago. It's actually right when the other picture next to it with me with all those guys. It was right before I went to Australia for the 21 convention. And it was just so cool because it was so early on in our relationship, but we were, it was just somebody that I could do crazy stuff with that was down with it. Because a lot of times girls won't. They'll like be into cool pictures, but not. And this is a very PG-13 picture of me and Maria just sticking our tongues out, but we have worse ones that are pretty intense. In fact, there's a pretty funny one where this was on our like second date, but no, man, I forget. Yeah, it's our second date. And we have this big sausage in our mouth and it looks really, really screwed up. Check it out. But it was just funny to be able to have somebody that you did that with. Now, this last picture here is of me at the 21 convention in Melbourne, Australia. And it's just kind of cool. There's Damien Dieka, Brad Branson, James Marshall, James McLean, Anthony Johnson, the CEO of the 21 convention. There's me. There's Yad, legendary Yad from daygame.com, and then Liam McRae. And then, of course, there were like 5 or probably like 10 other speakers there that are missing from the bit. But it was just so cool because that time I went there to speak at the 21 convention in Melbourne, Australia, and their host flaked out. I filled in as the host, which is like a pretty big responsibility just to step into. And you show up and they're like, hey, Steve, can you host? And then I actually got the job to host the convention and to host their podcast and be kind of like the face of that convention. So it's pretty cool, and that was right when it happened to be like kind of a cool nexus and a hub for all of men's development for the biggest convention when it comes to everything man, dating, health, entrepreneurship, philosophy, fighting, self-defense, all that sort of stuff. So a very, very cool thing. Man, all these things, if you take just these photos, which some of them seem really cool and some of them seem like totally random and bizarre, I've been able to tell you about the story behind them because all of them do have a story behind them. If you do that with your life, dude, watch the next video. We'll show you how to turn it into some badass stuff. Unique qualities, people. It's everything you need. In any case, I'm confused. Well, all right. Look, No big deal. The next video is going to be plugging this all into conversation, and it will really, really, kick ass and tell you all that stuff. But right now, think about those unique qualities. Think about how they affect you. Think about the story behind them and what that means to them, and start learning to take those transitions that you did. Like maybe it's a little bit of a buffer, which you'll see happen all the time, and just be like, I don't know if I should tell you this, but okay, look, I'm going to tell you anyway. And it has to do with relationships. Let me show you this picture in my phone. All right, what's your first thought with it? And you can get into all sorts of different conversations there. You could even do stuff like, hey, you're somebody that reminds me of my friend Jessica, and she was this really happy-go-lucky person. But how she thought, this is crazy, this may not be right for you, but how she thought, she always said influenced who she dated. And she always dated like really good people. Do you think different than your friends, and does that affect who you date? All right, so we can move into conversations like that really quickly. Look, guys, trust me. If you follow this map, you will get to rapport quick, efficiently, effectively. It'll be fucking badass, and your life will change big time. Let's get this stuff down. Go and practice some stuff out in the field, work on those transitions, get to a 20% open rate, 20% transition rate, and start to be able to naturally flow into conversations about rapport. When you get there, your time to move on to the next video, where we're going to learn a conversational structure on how to get in better rapport, and how to tie in that kind of new photo routine into some cool stuff. Once we get that, we'll set up our dates. Once we get that, we'll set up our escalation, and we'll be good to go. If you really want to get in depth on this, what we do at MD360, massive. We work with you directly. It's a very successful program. I would really recommend to save up for the full service version rather than just the automated version. And the reason for that is because we do 15 to 20 hours of coaching calls that I'm on. We're going to do one actually tonight. Today, as I'm doing this, is a Wednesday. We do anywhere from 4 to 5 hours of coaching, where it's just, we workshop all sorts of different stuff. If you're somebody that, you want to learn how to connect, you want to learn to apply this rapport stuff, you want to learn how to open, we will give you a map and work with you on that. It's just a very cool thing. So that being said, watch this stuff, internalize it. Man, you don't get anywhere if you're just sitting on your butt collecting material. You get somewhere by going out and trying it. Do that, and let's get ready for the next video. All right, thanks for watching. Steve Mayeda. Talk to you guys soon.